selected, and as far as the business and management category is concerned, there are hardly few people. So what we realized, if Indian book trade has to grow and if Indian publishing has to ever come to age, there have to be at least 5,000 Indian authors who produce at least 1,000 books every year. In the last 4-5 years of our existence, we've taken every step to promote Indian writing. We also initiated an award called Vodafone Crossword Award, where we recognize and reward the best in Indian writing. We are very happy to have a very successful Indian author by our side today, Ravi. Warm welcome to Ravi. Ravi, as you all know, this is his third book, and after The Incredible Banker and The Devil with Stripes. His earlier books have done exceedingly well. God of the Bank was the bestseller list for a substantial amount of time. And we are very, very happy to have Ravi here. Without further ado, I would ask Ravi to say a few words about it.
Thanks, Sitan. I think, thanks for the introduction. Crossword has been one of my favorite stores, and in fact, I make it a point that my first book launch, all the books I write, always happen at Crosswords, and particularly at the Kemp's Corner bookstore, and that's in Bombay. It's kind of become a superstition right now, and I just hope that store continues to actually continue right. My association with Crossword was pretty deep. So that's what Crossword. Folks, thank you very much for coming on a working day, on a month end, and for my book launch. I'm really honored by your presence here, and thank you very much for that. You guys have stood by me, and in fact, this is my first book launch in Calcutta for any of my books. In fact, let me go ahead and say this is probably my first event in Calcutta for any of my previous 3 books as well. So, to that extent, thank you very much for making this special for me. Now coming to the book, since many of you are from the banking fraternity, let me ask you a very simple question. How many of you have faced politics in your career? Only one? Everyone, right? So almost everyone has faced politics in your career, right? So what do? You know, I was in Hyderabad at a book launch, and there was a huge crowd, about 200 people, and about 10 students then, management students, who were in the second year. So they came back and asked, "Is this how work life is?" So I turned around and said, "Guys, what do you expect from your day one at your job?" The guy turned around and starry-eyed, tells me that, "Look, I would expect when I walk into my office, I'm welcomed by HR. I'm taken through a nice induction program. I'm given my job description saying these are 20 things one is expected to do. And after 12 months, somebody just took me and said, okay, you were done well on these 8 things, you're not done well on these 12 things. Rating of 2, here's a 20% hike and a 30% bonus." And somebody also said, okay, 2 years down the line, move to your next job. I looked at him and said, it never happens. Okay, has any of you had an experience wherein you've got something like this? I know I've been a few of your, I've been your supervisor for a couple of years, but I don't think even I did that, right? So the point I'm trying to make here is very simple. People's expectations of jobs and careers is completely different from what it actually ends up being. People, what they expect in the workplace is completely different from what actually ends up being. Politics in the workplace is here to stay. So my books tell people stories about corporate politics. My books tell people what to expect in your job through various stories that one has actually been through in one's life. And my books actually are quite nicely pieces to what people learn during their MBA courses. Right? MBA tells you how to drive a Ferrari on a super lubricated highway. I tell you how to ride a Ferrari on a bumpy roads of India. So that's the fundamental difference between what you learn in college and what my books teach you. For those who have read it, what was a writer? There's a very eerie coincidence today, and I was telling to the person I was speaking some time back. I walk into Calcutta and I see this huge this newspaper, the front page saying, talks about a Maoist leader being killed, right? And how his body was discovered from the jungles, and how the police actually think that he's a Maoist leader, and how actually they're going to do some tests on it to figure out. My book has exactly a similar story. It was written before this incident happened. Of how a Maoist leader actually gets gunned down in the jungles of Chhattisgarh, and how the cops recover something from his body which actually leads them back onto a trail into Greater Boston Global Bank. So it's a story of how Naxalites infiltrate a bank, and how the Naxals use the bank, you infiltrate a foreign bank, and how the Naxals use a foreign bank and the politics in the foreign bank to launder hundreds of crores of rupees through the banking channels, through the network in the jungles of Chhattisgarh, and make their ends meet. So it's a very different kind of a story from my first two books. It talks about corporate politics, it talks about money laundering, it talks about very interesting topics. It raises a question, a very simple question, which is, does India need expat CEOs? The book this book, Incredible Banker, as an expat CEO who struggles to deal with the situation, who struggles to deal with the challenges that he faces because of this money laundering issue being brought up in question. He's summoned to the Reserve Bank of India by the governor, and the RBI governor then actually hands him a letter saying that, buddy, your license is going to be cancelled. So what does he do? So it's a question, the book raises a question saying, in a country like India, with complexities like India, do you think you need an expat CEO, or will an Indian CEO do? That's one question which the book raises. The other question which the book raises is very interesting. It says, you might have the best of processes in the world, but if the people behind the processes are compromised, are those processes effective? Through the entire money laundering episode in the book, it raises that particular question. So it's a very different book compared to the first two books. Gilbert was a banker and Devlin Finchard are completely different books. So do read this book, and I'm sure you will find this interesting. And if you find it interesting, wonderful. If you don't find it interesting, please let me know what you didn't like in the book, so that I can incorporate that into my next book. Thank you very much.
I have a few questions. Did you have an expat CEO? Did you have an expat boss person?
I have had an expat CEO. I have worked with an expat boss, and not in one job, but in multiple of my jobs.
So we know why you are struggling for an expat. The second thing, the first book had a banker, second book has a banker. So has banker also something auspicious to do with your book sales or anything that you believe, like your next cornerstone?
It's okay. I'm just trying to be politically correct. Yes, I wanted the word banker in the title, and if you look at all my titles, it was a banker. The second was I bought the month Ferrari. The third was Devil and Prince Fight, and the fourth was it was a banker. You know, it either got the God or the devil, some spiritual connection, or the banker in the title. It does not mean that bankers are devils or gods, but
either of them.
Yeah, I think it's a superstition that the title needs to have either a god or a banker
Or a devil.
or some spiritual connection to that.
So, you like most of the, we all youngsters, and the biggest boon to Indian writing recently has been professional writing. You know, apart from traditional authors, real authors writing, people from different spheres of life, like Chetan, Anand Chauhan. There's a lot more people who are really not into writing books, so we have this new generation of authors who are not essentially authors, but you know, with the charm towards writing, they're writing really well. They are, I think, if you look at Amish Tripathi. So how is that struggle or the transformation from not really being an author or literary person to start writing? How easy it is, or what's the process that goes behind it?
In fact, if you're a professional and not a literary person, it's easy to write. Because if you're a literary person, then your expectations of your art are very high. And that kind of sometimes pulls you down. Whereas if you're not a literary person, you're a professional, then you would typically end up writing the way you speak. You write simple English. You write in a language which people can relate to and understand. So, and publishers too are really liking these kind of books these days, because they said. But having said that, I would just beg to differ on the point that a lot of professionals are turning authors. They are not. If you look at most of the professionals who write these days, many of them just write one book, okay, which is about their experiences, and that's the end of it. So it's not the start of the creative wave. It's pretty much just writing your own autobiography in one book and just ending it there. I think the real transformation will come in when there are more people like that. More people who actually write 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 books.
There are many like that.
There are a few. You can still count them on the fingertips. There are not too many of them who actually have gone beyond the first book. And I think that's when they start writing the third, fourth, that's when you can think that they are starting to write from their own creative.
A lot of politics. So is politics the next step? A lot of politics. Political correct answer.
No, my books are all about corporate politics. So politics of the country is not an option at all. I don't think I'm cut out.
Any questions from the audience? Anything you'd like to ask your friends, Ravi? Most of you know him better than I do. So.
You can ask me any dirty question that you want. Are there any of you wants to share a particular politically motivated instance in your career? Maybe that is a starting point of a discussion.
You can read a passage from the book in fact, no? Funny passage.
How many of you have read this book?
What was the 9th and
2. Good, so we can sell a lot more copies today. Okay, you want to ask anything about the book?
I love it.
There are a couple of things which I wanted to quickly share with you about the book, and which many people asked me when they saw the cover of the book. It's an incredible banker. There's a red in the title. What does the red signify? A lot of people came back and said, does it signify HSBC? Right? So, I have one person here who read this book. So, you would want to comment on it?
Honestly, I don't know actually which. I think it's totally fictitious, and theme of the book has got nothing to do as a banking channel to identify which bank it is. And it's a storyline which is actually very interesting. So it really doesn't matter which bank it is.
Okay, so you got the answer. It's not HSBC. Right? The other thing which I wanted to, which is very strange, and I actually wanted to talk to you guys about it was, if you read Record of the Banker, there's a very interesting story in it about a wealth management fraud. And this book was written in 2006 and published in 2007. 2011, exactly similar fraud happens in Citibank in Delhi. The Shivrajpuri 400 crore fraud. Now, I wrote about this 4 years back. I wrote about this book in 2000 and I wrote this book last year, 2009, 2010. And some of the key incident, and that incident in the book actually connects to the story, the main ingredient of the story towards the end. And in this book, again, the killing of the Naxalite in the jungles of Chhattisgarh, and the way that actually the Naxalite is found and what the police actually find in his body and how they actually bring it back to Greater Boston Global Mine is a key part of the story. It's actually the crux of the story. And it's a bit providential and quite a coincidence that I land in Calcutta and there is, instance exactly similar to what happened in this book. So it gives you a little bit of a eerie feeling, but it also makes you feel good because the last line in the book, or not in the book, but in the blurb of the book, says sometimes future can only be seen in fiction. So I'm going to go back and read my next manuscript and see if there's something there to actually come here.
I I just hope there are not too many similarities. Otherwise, people will think you're a Maoist sympathizer and the next thing you see, you're in jail. So that's okay. So I think we don't have any more questions. Thanks, Ravi. He's still here. So you can buy his book, get signed by him, and discuss more. Thanks, Ravi, for coming here.
Thank you very much.